Okay. So in the last video, we created the header image using Photoshop with some pretty straightforward techniques of inserting a smart object and then using a layer mask. Now we're going to move on to creating the document structure, document hierarchy and structure, and talk a little bit about meaningful markup. Okay, I'll do meaningful markup first, I think. So I'll introduce you to the basics of HTML. Essentially, in our example file, if we click on split or code, we can see the code behind the document. We've got the document type here and here, which illustrates the type of document. In this case, it's HTML5. That's what that bit stands for. Then we've got a tag here that says that this document is HTML, and everything from this point on is considered HTML. And then this tag here, which is the closing tag for that, ends the document. So essentially, tags come in pairs. It can be confusing. Some tags don't come in pairs. For example, the meta tag here doesn't have a corresponding closing tag. So we've got title has an open tag and a closing tag. So does the head here and here. The whole head, that's usually used to contain things like metadata. Metadata can be like the character set here that's available. It can be keywords, it can be page description, the author, updated, all sorts of information like that. It can contain the title, it can contain the style sheet or a link to the style sheet. It can contain JavaScript to add interaction. Although JavaScript and CSS can appear anywhere within the document. In a structured, well-structured document, they would usually be defined there at the very least. And then we've got the body. And if I was just to go back to design view and type in, this is some text. Go back to split view, you will notice that it appears between the body tags here and here. Okay, let's put a line return in there, separate that out. So we will be creating our document structure in there. So a tag essentially is a keyword encompassed or encased between angle brackets. So that's encapsulated. There used to be, or there still are, tags that people use called div tags. And these were used to create essentially regions within a document for styling purposes. Others, for example, are span. Although span is a bit more meaningful, it just usually relates to a section of text. But really what we're looking to do is work in a meaningful way. So with HTML5, they created new tags. And whilst those two still exist, we're looking for meaningful markup. We now have things like the header. We have article. We have section. Which is usually found within an article, like so. And we also now have footer. There are some others that we might be using at this moment in time. One of particular use is nav, which relates to navigation. So you can have multiple navigations in the page if you want. You've got another one called aside, which is used to describe content that would be placed in a side column. But these are the main ones that we'll be working on. And it's meaningful because the tags represent the document structure. So we know that things going in a header is a header. We know that things going in nav is going to be links and navigation. We know that an article is where the main content, body content of the document will be. We know what goes in the footer. So it's just a little bit more meaningful. It makes it a bit easier to work with. Okay, so back to Dreamweaver. And what we're going to do is we're going to work in a way that allows us to use the design view rather than hand code to start off with. Okay, so in the title, I'm just going to call that Unit 61 template. Eventually this will become a template when we're finished with it. And then what I'm going to do is point out, we've got down here, it tells us what the current tag is. So we're currently inside of the body tag, everything that's visual is. I'm then going to right click and I'm going to insert HTML. It's a drop down list, so I don't need to necessarily remember exactly how the tag is formed. I'm just going to look for header and then insert that. And if I just go back to where I was, you'll see body and header. I'll then type in this is the header, so I don't lose it for now. Then I'm going to click outside somewhere so that I return to just the body, as we can see down here. Right click and I'm going to insert some HTML, and in this case I'm going to put the article. And then inside of the article, so if I start typing, this is the article. In fact, I'll call that the article heading, because eventually it would become a heading. I'll then insert outside of that the footer. Return, click off. Find the footer, and you can see that I'm there. I've just clicked to the bottom left, to be honest. This is the footer. Usually you would put maybe a copyright statement in there, or maybe even a navigation at the bottom of the page, depending on how big your page is. So those are the three main ones, and then inside of the article, I'm going to right click at the end of that bit, insert HTML, and put my section. And just put a line in there. This is the first section. Okay, and we'll look down here now. It's actually, because I pressed return, it's put a paragraph inside of this section. So I've got a couple of paragraphs. Now we look in the split view, you will see the code underneath. Okay, so we've got the body. We know from what I said earlier that everything that falls between the opening body tag and the closing body tag is visible in the page. We've got a header tag, which is where our header image will eventually land up. We have got an article tag which opens the article. It doesn't appear till here where it closes again, with the section coming inside of the article. So that's why it's meaningful. Sections come inside of articles, and therefore we've given the document a certain amount of structure. And then paragraphs are obviously describing the text order. And then we've got the footer. So in the footer, if we go back to design and insert, actually we'll get it from insert text. This has actually been taken out in future versions of Dreamweaver, which is a bit of a shame. It's nice to have things like characters. So in the footer, instead of having this is a footer, I can put a copyright symbol, and then 2015, and I could put my name, and maybe a statement, all rights reserved. At this point in time, I need to do that. Okay. So moving forwards, I think we'll stop at that point, and then we'll be in the next video starting to insert our content. Okay, I'll just save the file.